New title. Rogue Awakenings, a D&D tale. Original title. Rude Awakening, The Gallows Calling. Copyright. Andrei Michael Petroshek. The story is written in storyteller mode, semi-omniscient, and includes some knowledge the readers otherwise would not be able to know. My goal is to add more show don't tell and search to reconnect with the passion I once had to write this. Originally, the player who inspired me to write Eminem had a problem with this idea. Years later, that changed. Sadly, I only had the audio script remaining, so this story will have some grammar issues and I may or may not write the parts aka Ventures 3 and 4 of it. Part 2 will be inserted into this once I have time to run it through proofreading and do written grammar basics on the audio script. The roleplay tale begins. Venture 1. Cryptic Surprises. In a dark room, a cloaked humanoid silhouette moves on the ground. Slowly moving both hands along the skull, the throat, and then the body, as if checking for wounds. Slowly rising from a prone position into a crouch on knees and hands, the figure fetches a leather band from a pocket, removes the cloak, wraps the leather around his eyes, and knots them at the back of the head. Thereafter, looking around, he crawls toward a second but smaller figure prone on the ground some steps away. Still crouched, the first figure moves its head, as if inspecting the stocky second figure for a while. Eminem, wake up, seems, we were knocked out in the last fight, said Bumley. The room still was deeply in accursed darkness, only his years of living the dungeoneer way of life had trained Bumley to not lose orientation. The rustling of cloth, leather, and chain armor was all Bumley could hear at the moment. The stocky fellow also started checking himself for wounds and lost equipment, it seemed. Me head spins like an orc skull bashed with a warhammer, said the smaller, stocky fellow, who therefore must be Eminem. Remember the plan, we snatch what we can get, then get the hell out of here, said Bumley. The guild will sure not grant us the black cloak for this failure, grumbled Eminem. A guild that did send us after a necromancer, convinced we could just sneak into a crypt, acquire his wand and spellbook, and have the undead menace neutralized. Forget those fools, hissed Bumley. Loot sack of mine is quite full if that is a hint you may need. Maybe, we triggered a trap instead of going down in a fight, wondered Eminem, the materialist crypt explorer. Dwarven stubbornness. A loot sack, I told you a messenger bag is so much better, albeit smaller. It looks inconspicuous to guards, is practical, can be stitched and reinforced by skill, and allows to run or fight on the job, lectured Bumley. Go, whine in some elven whore's arms, countered Eminem. Nay, we follow the plan. That means, our plan, not the guild's idiocy, insisted Bumley. The two hooded figures cautiously moved toward the doorway, weapons drawn. I hear not a thing, said Eminem. Same to my ears, replied Bumley. Raising his head one notch, the dwarven thief sniffed the air. Smells rotten though, whispered Eminem. Yeah, blame the undead, it still could be the harlot you hugged last night, dared Bumley. Upholding a holy symbol, worn like an amulet around his neck, Eminem studied the corridor deep in the darkness. Eerie silence and faint wind in the distance built the only sound to hear. I know this build of a crypt. There are stairs to get us out, follow along, proclaimed Eminem. Aye, replied Bumley. The two rogues sneaked towards the supposed exit of the crypt, slow movements speaking of practice in stealth actions. Instances later they came up the stairs, arriving on a small, stone-built graveyard. Getting a dozen steps away from the crypt, Bumley looks at something obscured by a gravestone. Seen it? Inquired Bumley. Corpse of our guild's nanny left as a feast for crows, assured Eminem. Unspoken, but true, the surprising death of a guild supervisor, so incompetent he, or she, was easy fodder for the hungry dead, turned the suspicion of Bumley, about the guild being not worth it, into a more factual estimation. Both rogues started their notorious rogue's grin. A dangerously obvious, slim smile of the triumphant scoundrel, real or imagined, when it was about the triumph being factual or spiritual. That guild is bad karma. We leave for dead, said Bumley. Pointing toward trees on the horizon, Eminem faces Bumley anew. Jenna would sure be happier, when we bring her a boar or some rabbits, instead of merely our personal presence, came the words from Eminem. Yes, I will beg for nature's guidance on that kind of fee to pay. Pray, once we are away from this accursed graveyard, said Bumley. We cannot go public smelling like gravediggers and corpse huggers, added Eminem. There is a pond I know of, close by, and sufficient moonlight to get ourselves cleaned up, said Bumley. Still cautious and distrustful of the seemingly peaceful calm oft encountered after the bloodshed, the two rogues moved with weapons drawn. Bumley wielded a rune-inscribed, spiked buckler and a short blade, while Eminem preferred a pistol crossbow and his mace, full metal cudgel, which had the same symbol inscribed, as his amulet. Finding their way back to the fence that surrounded the burial area, they made it back out, directly heading toward the outline of trees. It is different to sneak through forests, said Eminem. Yes, holy ground to our ancestors. Some still is, said Bumley. Witches, shamans, and druids living with animals, some say the first elves came from the spiritual union of man and beast kinda love, said Eminem. Dangerous simplification. Remember that some of us really were there. It's like with your dwarven ancestors, lots of tales, falsehoods, and truism, mixed or confused now and then, replied Bumley. Contrary to commoners, cliché, both of them were roguish in their faith. Eminem never preached about his deity, and Bumley never attempted to show anyone the beauty and power of nature's divine aspects either. But all of that was forgotten when the deceptively consistent moonlight shone down on what they watched in the pond, the small lake of water, that night. Seemingly dumbstruck and perplexed, the both of them fell onto their behinds, still staring into the water. For what they beheld was not their well-known mortal forms, but instead the clearly undead variant of themselves. My beard! Shrieked Eminem. Eminem, formerly a dwarven specimen, now resembled a wight. His skin was an unnatural, chalky white, and his one hair visible were his eyebrows and a mad blackened beard that looked like a zombified mockery of the original dwarven pride. At the same time, the larger rogue also twitched and gagged while staring into the pond. Next date is the Reaper, sweetie, mocked Bumley, staring at his own mirror image. Bumley looked ghoulish, with a belly now shaking its wax-like, utterly unhealthy fat. Plus claws and fangs of the gluttonous undead. After a long while of handling their individual shock, they spoke again. On the good side, it could mean Celestial Management wants us to do a job for them, stated Bumley. Slim chance that our mere faith resisted necromancy and a nap on unholy ground. The duo looked at each other for a moment, as words proverbially sank in. Or that necromancer comes back one day, bossing us around, as his newly acquired lackeys, concluded Eminem. And Jenna thought me ugly during my lifetime, joked Bumley. Well, you sure ain't the comely bard type who she longs for, stated Eminem. I do not even have my own undead white beard like Sir Dwarf does, retaliated Bumley. The rogues struggled with shock, and only the fact that both of them had at least basic training in a more spiritual form of militant faith, had bolstered them against those knockbacks by life. Venture 2. Dragon Poo on Sexwork Avenue. Miranda heard the screams about incoming undead while she was sitting in her office. Lady-in-chief of her rural brothel these days, she had hoped the calm and profitable life was secured. Minor surprises have to be expected. Scrambling and moving around her, as customers and employees reacted to the screams in their ways. Rushing downstairs, she arrived to see the main room of the former tavern in upheaval. Tables were already moved to barricade the windows, her guards with weapons drawn and spell wands ready. In the middle of the main room, where customers were supposed to gladly spend their hard-earned money, two pale humanoids in rags were nailed and pinned to the floor. All around, the less courageous customers and employees were in erratic movement and panicked reactions. Her sister, Jenna, is in a frantic debate with the rotting corpses. Jenna announced, "You will pay for all the havoc you wreaked, and you will recompense every single customer and client of this night. Do you hear me? You will pay it all." People around, with a more than magical term like recompense in the ears, found something to prioritize above their fears. Some began staring at the undead duo. Bumley said, "Belt, backside, a small pocket with a pressure knob." Eminem said, "Oh, damn you Bumley, godless heathen, now you owe me tenfold. Jeweled dagger, in my right boot." One of the bouncers moved, spiked cudgel still ready, going for the small pouch on the larger talking corpse. Opening it, he showed his hand filled with 5 gold coins. The coins, shining in the tavern lights, were like a clerical sanctuary to most bystanders, or so it seemed. Fear and anger subsided, as business opportunity became the wisdom of the moment. Jenna said. Pavel, prepare a free round of ale for our dear guests. Now. Mumbles of appreciation soon followed her command. Emien said. Me takes dwarven ale. Bumley said. Oh, I prefer honey wine to ale. Jenna said. You rotting dolts. You can be happy I recognized your foolish faces before you were beheaded. You pay for those drinks extra, you hear me. Nailed to the ground still, the smaller talking corpse still tried to sucker punch the larger one, whenever paying became a topic. Emien said. You owe me, Bumley. Oh, you owe me. Bumley said. Worry not, Sir Whitebeard, you will be recompensed well. Miranda said. I see you handled this little surprise with our guests in good graces, Jenna. Thank you so much. An hour later everything was back to routine. Bumley and Emien caught up in their negotiations. Bumley said. Okay, I may have been a bit distracted. We could have taken the back entry or sneaked in through a window. Still, this way we have another problem off our list of threats. Emien inquired. Oh, and that would be? Bumley replied. The spell I worked while we did that involuntary meditation on the ground. It would need a ritual effort in stealthy performance when done with traditional means. Emien asked. And what would this spell be about to make it worth a real artisan dagger and the gems and coins we lost for stomping in on Jenna and Miranda? Bumley sneered. It brought my spies into position, so the clerical divination by Sir Whitebeard would not be turned futile with the local getting the idea later. Emien said. I would feel much more convinced if you could hand me some of what you owe me right now. To that, Bumley replied. Sir Whitebeard, might I bestow upon you this trinket? Emien spoke. That is no trinket, crypt elven peasant, it is a platinum-made amulet. Well, better than cheap copper or wood. The amulet vanished into one of the hidden pockets so popular among rogues and travelers. Bumley warned Emien. We still have a real necromancer behind us, and a guild of loonies, who made us go against that dark wizard. Emien contemplated aloud. Methinks, our former guild was tricked. Made lackey in delivering corpses to be, or worse. Darker worse. Bumley said. A suspicion not unknown to me. But, we had not cooperated on any special job in the past years. Emien lectured. Then not the job but ourselves might be that special. If there is a sane motive at all. Bumley spoke. Arcane magic is nothing but trouble and treachery. Emien said. So you remember that much wisdom at least. Venture 3, that special dwarven touch. Early the next morning, the rural inn was barely getting active already. Bumley made his way out of his room. Far from fit, as the constant hunger of the gluttonous dead had a hold on him, and so did pretending that the constant pain and anguish of undead existence would not take a toll. Still, rogues are deceivers by trade, and many of those who excel, also tend to be born deceivers, as it is as useful to their ways of acquiring income, as stealth tends to be. Sir Whitebeard, is that the old tune I hear you whistle? Inquired Bumley. Emien glimpsed, as if hit by a cleric speak the truth sorta confession spell. Shut that food hole, me is in trouble. Emien, we both know. You know that, I am in trouble, is the way to say it, and we do know that you really, will not lose any gold by trading the two-letter word, me, for the. Hi, spoke Bumley. Says an elven-blooded crypt stalker, not a dwarven elder, stated Emien. Seriously, we are back at no honor among thieves sorta debates, wondered Bumley. Nay, replied Emien. His shoulders sank in resignation. Jenna had a bad start this morning. So, give her some time to put on makeup and get ready for her guests, said Bumley. Nay, not that sorta bad, more, like at the pond, admitted Emien. Emien, stated Bumley, sometimes, when her dreams went awry, she came over to sleep in my arms, informed Emien. So, awaited Bumley. Just damn ask her yourself, and keep the mouth shut about it, insisted Emien. Bumley noticed that Emien's hands were resting on his weapons. Also, at least one wand was plain to see on Emien's belt. Complying with his companion's proposal, Bumley went inside the room, quickly closing the door behind him. The sun really stings today, doesn't it? Said Jenna. Holy crap, stammered Bumley. Jenna had changed, and a lot so. Her white bluish skin reminded of Emien's new skin, and her formerly brunette hair now was matte black, in the same mockery of life that the dwarven beard of Sir Whitebeard already went through. Last night, Jenna acted on instinct, crawling into Emmion's bed to shrug off her nightmares. White Emmion drained her by accident, and she became another white, as she was killed early in the night, and so darkness had a hold on her. Those drained in sunlight tended to remain dead, but not all whites were able to remain active in sunlight. The proverbial dice were thrown, and no knowledge of fluctuations in the early stages of negative energy and necromantic folklore could remedy it. Miranda would inherit the inn, as Jenna clearly would be a bane to secrecy and discretion alike. While most patrons were wanderers, rangers, and woodworkers, word would spread and rumors would start. Paladins would not care, and undead hunters were more dangerous than most city guards were to regular rogues. Bumley bit his lower lip, as their failure in that accursed crypt had
forced them into a life they did not want to live at all. A life full of surprises, a life painful and limited. A life that devoured their friends and loved ones without any shame or regret. The undeath-only deity Orcus could still keep unholy pathways. End of my raw draft remake.